What is up, guys, and welcome to another Unreal Engine course. This time we are going to build a 3D infinite runner game, and as always we are first going to take a look at the game that we are going to create, and I'm going to talk about what you're going to learn and why am I still talking, why am I not showing you the game. So yeah, let's get into it. So I'm going to click the play button and automatically we will see a level is being spawned. We have these obstacles in terms of chairs and tables, and of course this can be anything else. This can be enemies, this can be fireballs or whatever. But yeah, we need to avoid these. As you can see at the top left corner, we have meters counting how much meters we have passed. And if we touch one of these obstacles, we are simply going to fall down, so roll over, and the level is going to restart. Of course, here you can build upon, you can create a main menu, you can create other levels and multiple levels, you can add other obstacles, so you can create spheres that move left and right, add your own 3D custom models. We will learn how to utilize the third-person project that comes with Unreal Engine that we can use, or its functionality we can use to our advantage, and we will also learn how we can build a lot of things from scratch, such as the player and player movement and so on and so forth. So yeah, basically this is the game that we are going to create, and even though it looks simple from the first glance, we are going to learn a lot of cool techniques, tips and tricks, and a lot of complex stuff as well. So yeah, I know you're eager to start learning, and I don't want to stall anymore. So farherefromzus.com. I don't know why I did this, but hey, I will see you in the next video. Okay, my little game developer elves, we are here in a new project, so click on the tab for the new project, and here under blueprint we are not going to click blank. Instead we're going to start with the third person. We will have some already made things for us, or assets and stuff like that, but we are also going to create our custom own, so don't worry about that. And here make sure that you select with starter content, don't check this without. So with starter content, select here where you want to save your project, and here the name I'm going to say simply runner. You can name it however you want to name it, and then simply click on create and wait for Unreal Engine to take mercy upon you and me and open the project as quickly as it can. And man, Unreal Engine is a little bit hard on the CP because I have a really good computer in terms of strength. I don't know, I think 32 gigabyte of RAM, a really good processor and stuff like that, but still takes a lot of time to create a project. Anyways, here we are. This is our default scene. When you select the third person, I can go over here. We have the third person. We can run, we can jump, but we cannot hide because the killer will find us regardless. And yeah, but we're not going to use this. Instead, what I'm going to do is go over here and click on inside of the content browser. At the top left corner, you see this show or hide the source panel. So I'm going to click on that. And there inside of the content here, I'm going to right click and I'm gonna click on new folder. And here I'm going to simply say runner_game so that I know that all of this right here is what we will have for our runner game. I'm also gonna right click again, create a new folder, and I'm going to call or simply levels. And here I'm gonna go file and new level, and the default one, I'm going to leave it like this. So default, I'm gonna go under here, file, and save current, and I'm gonna go runner game and levels, and I'm simply going to call this bad boy gameplay and hit enter. Voila. Now we are also going to right click again and create a new folder. In this bad boy, I'm going to call this one game items. So game items or gameplay items, however you want to call it. So I can go here instead of game, I can say gameplay items, and I can go inside of the folder, right click and create a blueprint class. And we're going to select actor, and an actor is an object that can be placed or spawned in the world. And this is exactly what we need, because this, what we are going to create right now, is going to be a part of our level. So click on the actor here, and I'm going to call this one level floor. So level_floor. And double click and open this bad boy in the blueprint editor. I'm gonna dock my blueprint editor because that's how I love it. And here we have the default. You see this source right here is a default scene root component. What I'm simply gonna do is go here, add, and I'm going to filter for scene. And if you hover over the scene, you see a scene component has a transform and supports attachment but has no rendering or collision capabilities. Basically, this is a container for our elements, and I'm going to select now this scene that I have created, and I'm going to drag it on the default scene root. So drag it on it and it will simply it will simply replace it, okay? I have issues talking, which is nothing new because you already know that. Anyways, now that we have our scene, I'm gonna go here under add component and I'm going to filter for a static. So static mesh, this is our bad boy over here, and this is going to be our floor. So I'm simply going to rename him to floor. And for the floor here in the static mesh, so the mesh that is visually going to represent this mesh. So I'm going to click here and we are going to filter for plane. So click on plane and voila, this is the bad boy that we want. So shape plane. I'm also going to change the location Y at 600. So change the location Y at 600 for this dude. And we are going to scale it. But I'm going to scale it by 12 on all three axes. And there is a nice trick, and I believe that if you went through the other Unreal Engine course, the beginner's guide, you saw that trick. Anyways, if you want to scale like this, so 12, 12, 12, what you can do is instead of typing 12, 12, 12 everywhere, let me just put that back to 1, 1, 1, you can click on this lock icon over here to lock it basically, and it will lock the scale, which means now if I type 12 only on one scale axis, which is X, and if I hit enter, it will scale all three axes basically. And voila, here we are. Now here for the material, because if I go back here in the gameplay, we selected that we want a starter content with that. So if I go here inside of the starter content, we have the materials that you can see over here that we can use, yada, yada, yada. Which means that I can go back here in the floor or in the blueprint, and click here for the element, and I can filter for the ground, and we want the ground gravel, and this is the floor's material or texture, or however you want to call it, that we are going to use to represent our floor, which is really, really cool. Cool. Now, moving forward, I'm going to click on add component and add another static mesh. And this one, okay, this is not going to be a child of the floor. So let me just add it over here like this. And I'm going to call this one left, because this is going to be our left bound. And this is simply going to be, click on the static mesh and filter for the cube. And here we are going to select our cube, and of course we're not going to select this cube, we are going to select the lower cube. So 0.1 for the X on the scale for actually unlock this, so make sure that you unlock it. So 0.1 scale on the X, 12 on the Y, 0.075 on the Z scale. Also for the location here of the transform, I'm going to say X is at 600, Y is at 600, and Z is at 40. Make sure that this is selected to be movable, because we will need it to be movable. And here for the material, I'm going to click on, and I'm going to filter for wood. And we're going to take the wood walnut, which is really, well, I mean, not that cool, but yeah, it is cool. So I'm going to leave it like that. And I'm going to compile and save. And now here for the left, selecting it here under components tab, holding control and pressing W. I assume on Mac it's control D or command D, excuse me, and I'm going to call this one right. So now we have the left bound and the right bound. But what I'm gonna do with the right one is select it, and here for the X axis, for the location, I'm going to say -600, which will simply move it over here, as you see. So now we have the so excuse me for that. Apparently too much air came in my throat and I almost died, but you don't care about that. So anyways, it will move it, and now we have the left and the right bound. So what is the next step? Here I'm going to click on add component, and I'm going to filter for the arrow. But before that, I'm going to select the scene and filter for the arrow so that it's not a child of the right, okay? That is what I want. And I'm going to call this one spawn. So click on it, spawn L, and for the spawn L, I'm going to set the X at 387, 1055 for the Y. Z, I'm going to leave it 0, and the rotation, I'm going to say -90 like this. Not 30, but -90 like this, okay? Not 900, -90, okay? And same as how we have the spawn left, you're also going to have our spawn right. So command or control W to duplicate it is going to be our spawn R. R is short for right, by the way. And for this bad boy, I'm going to set him at 318 for the X. Y will be at 1055. Rotation will still be the same, and you will see here we have these nice little arrows, which is really, really cool. So yeah, we are also going to have a spawn center because we are also going to spawn our elements inside of the center. So here I'm going to call this one spawn center like this. And I'm going to position this one at 11 for the X. So 11 for the X, Y, and rotation will stay the same. And basically that is that for the spawning these things, for the spawning arrows. So Control W to duplicate again, because we are also going to have something that I call attach point. So I'm going to call this bad boy attach point like this. And for the attach point, I'm going to set him 0 for the X, and for the Y, I'm going to say 1200 like this, and Z I'm not gonna touch, and this is where he is going to be located. And by the way, I am going to set the rotation for this bad boy at 0, because what we are going to do with this attach point, this is basically going to tell us where we are going to attach the next element. What do I mean by that? Well, basically here, let me just see, do I have my highlight tool? I didn't think that I opened my highlight tool, okay? Unfortunately, I didn't. But you see this right here, this our floor and stuff like that. So if I duplicate it, we're going to have another one over here like this. So we're going to have another floor, and where they intersect, you see over here where they intersect, or where they are put together with each other, it's going to be that attach point. So I'm going to use that attach point for that purpose, okay? So that's why we need it. And of course, I'm going to show that and demonstrate it, so we will see when we start coding or blueprinting and stuff like that, so don't worry about that at all. But before I leave, I am also going to attach here a box trigger, a box collision, that I'm going to call end trigger like this. Now for this dude, I'm going to set the X at 0, Y I'm going to set at 1388, and Z it's going to be 155. This is for the position. Now for the X scale, we're going to leave it at 1. The Y scale, we're going to say 0.1 like this, and the Z scale, I'm going to say 30. So 30 like this. But you see, it is small, so this is not what we want. And here for the box extent for the X, I'm simply going to say 600, which is going to resize it. And voila. Why do we need this? Well, when we start creating our infinite, or when we start running infinitely, we are going to pass through this trigger, which is going to deactivate the floor that has that trigger, and it's going to spawn a new floor, and then we are going to have an infinite level, which we will see as well, so don't worry about that. But basically, this was just creating our level, and yeah. Here from Tuts.com. I mean, we did not do anything that was like, you know, not done in the other Unreal Engine course, the beginner one, because you are required to go through that one if you want to go through this one. So yeah, we just imported the floor, we put everything over here, left, right, spawn, L, blah, blah, blah. We just moved and repositioned things, so nothing that requires explanation. That's why I'm gonna say here from Tuts.com. I will see you guys in the next video if you don't land in jail, so take care. Moving forward, now that we have a part of our level, we are going to also create obstacles that we are going to spawn on every level piece. But by the way, every time you create something, make sure that you compile and save, and well, on a regular basis, go here under File and Save All, or Control-Shift-S on Windows, or on Mac, Command-Shift-S or the equivalent. So make sure that you get in the habit of saving things, because, well, we're changing the thing, so make sure that you save them. Right click over here inside of the gameplay items, and inside here I'm gonna click on the blueprint, and I'm going to create an actor blueprint, and this is going to be my first obstacle. So I'm going to say obstacle _1 like this, and double click it and open this bad boy in the editor. Now here for the default scene, I'm not gonna touch anything. I'm simply going to filter for a static mesh, and voila. Now this static mesh is going to be my chair, and as you assumed, I'm going to filter here for the chair, so I'm simply going to go and filter chair. We are going to have SM chair. This is the one that I want. Also make sure that you lock the scale and set here the scale 2 for all 3 axes, compile and save. This is all we need to do when it comes to the first obstacle. When it comes to the second one, I'm going to duplicate the first one. So duplicate it. And yeah, for example, for some reason I duplicated 3, but anyways, we will need 3. So here, obstacle 2, I'm gonna click it over here, go in the chair viewport, not the event graph, so viewport, and instead of the chair, I'm going to filter for the table, and voila. This is our second obstacle. Compile and save, Control Shift S to save all. And going back in the gameplay, we already have the third obstacle, which is, well, really cool, and I created it by accident, but yeah, still we are going to have it. And let's go over here. Instead of calling it the chair, I'm going to call it statue, like this, I guess. And here for the SM chair, or for the static mesh, I'm going to change it from the chair, and I'm going to filter here for matte preview, like this. Yeah, this is what I want. Voila, this is the bad boy I want. For this, I am going to go back here for the statue and set the scale to 1 for all 3 axes, because this is large on its own already. Save and compile, or compile and save. And for the material here, for the first one, I'm going to filter for copper, or copper, I think. Yeah, copper, this is pronounced. I have no idea, man. Probably some wise guys will be now, oh, technically it is pronounced like this. I don't care, man. I just don't care. And here I'm going to say gold, and voila. So compile and save. And let's just make sure over here in our scene, we are not going to have this floor, so we can safely delete it, and we are going to have our level like this. But let us just make sure that the size of these elements are nice. Yeah, this is cool. This is totally fine. Everything we need. And yeah, basically this is the preparation for our obstacles. In the next video, we are going to start programming them or blueprinting them over here inside of the level floor, so that they spawn every single time we spawn a new level floor. So we'll see how that goes. Until then, Fa here from AwesomeDudes.com. We'll see you guys in the next video. Okay, now we are going to actually blueprint, and I say blueprint, but that is program, the spawning of these obstacles without us having the need to drag and drop them over here in our level. So I'm going to delete everything that we added here. So our level floor, so come on, select it if it's finally gonna select it. So let's go inside of the level floor. And here everything is gonna happen inside of the construction script. But before we do that, here I'm going to create another function. So I'm going to call this function set spawn points. First of all, we are going to set the spawn points that we have, which are the spawn left, right, and center. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a variable, and that variable is going to be called, so click on it, and rename it to spawn points, and it is going to be a type of transform over here, but it's going to be an array. And how are we going to denote that? Well, if you go over here at the details, so on the details, and let me just go here quickly on the desktop so that I can open my, here it is, this is my highlight tool. So now finally I have my highlight tool, so Control 2, here it is. So you see here where it says the transform, you're going to click on this little icon here for the transform that I have just circled for you. So click on that like this, and you're going to click on this grid over here. You see, because this grid will say array. So not this one, not this one, you're going to select the grid, which is an array. So now when you have that grid, again, here, this little icon that I have drawn just for you, you cannot miss it, you're not blind. And that means that you have created an array of spawn points. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that over here, I'm going to call set here, because we are going to set it over here. And first things first, I'm going to drag and drop. So we are going to have the spawn right, which is this bad boy over here. We're going to get it, spawn L, and our spawn center. Now, if you're wondering where I got these, well, they are here under variables and components. You see over here, you have where it says variables, you have components right away, because these components that we create over here are created as variables automatically here, so that we don't have to get references to them and so on and so forth. We can use them directly because they are attached on this blueprint component, or there are components on this blueprint, which means I can simply drag and drop them over here and create variables like this that you just saw. And again, make sure that when you drag and drop them, you call the get, not the set you call the get, which will create these three variables like this, and you will have them same as I have them over here right now. And what we are going to do is here I'm going to right click and I'm going to say get relative transform. So we are going to get the relative transform. And the target, let me just see over here. So get relative transform, we are going to uncheck this context sensitive. So make sure that if this context sensitive is checked, you see, should the list be filtered to only actors that make sense to the current context? No. We're going to uncheck that and we are going to get this one, get relative transform, because here you will need to see target is scene component. So make sure that you see that. I'm going to select it, copy and paste it 2 times. So Control V or Control C, Control V 2 times, which means now that I can take my spawn R and I can plug this in over here, which will get the relative transform. You see, returns the transform of the component relative to its parent. Basically, it will do what it says. It will return the transform of this component, which is spawn R, which is right here. It will return it, and if I go over here and if I select it, spawn R, this is our bad boy over here. So it will return this transform over here relative to its parent, which is the scene component that we already attached. So do the same thing for the L, do the same thing for the center. So now we have the relative components. What we're going to do now is I'm going to right click here and I'm going to say make array to create an array. We want this one over here, create an array from series of items. So this bad boy over here. And we are going to drag and drop that array over here to spawn points. So now this array knows that this is an array of transforms, which means here for add pin, because currently we have only 1 element, but we have 3 spawn points, we are going to click on this add pin, so 1 and 2 times, which means now we have 3 elements, and you're going to attach this one here, and attach this one over here, and attach this one over here. You see, it's really easy to do all of these things, so it's not hard when you know the functions. And yes, I know some people are like, but I don't know all functions. Well, I'm teaching you the functions right now. So here, I'm going to drag and drop this, or attach this spawn points over here, and bam, here we are. So what this essentially is going to do is when this function is called, it is going to execute this over here, which has set the spawn points, which is going to do all of this over here. So the set spawn points is going to do all this work. We're going to get this reference, and this reference, get their relative transform, put them here in this array, and plug that array over here. And that's all we are doing. So now if I go here in the construction script, I can right click and I can call set spawn points like this, and this is the first function that will be called when we run our game. This is the set spawn points. What is the next one that is going to be called? The next one is going to be called, so here under functions, and by the way, this is over here, you see where I am drawing. We can click on this plus button to create a new function. So click there, create a new function, and I'm going to call this one set obstacles. Because if we want to spawn the obstacles in our game and Control Shift S or Command Shift S, depending on where you are, which platform you're using, or OS, if we want to spawn these obstacles, we need to get a reference to them. So here, the obstacles that we created in the previous video, obstacle 1, 2, and 3, if we want to spawn them on our level, we need to get their references. And here is the reference. First of all, we do need to create here under variables. I'm going to click on variables, and I'm going to call this one obstacles. It is going to be an array, but this is going to be an array of actors. But pay attention what I'm going to do. So here under transform, again, which is right over here. So click on the transform drop down list, and here in the search, I'm going to filter for actors. I'm going to say actor, and right here on object type, you see the object type. Again, filter here for actor, and here under object type, you have the actor. Next, you have the drop or this right arrow to open these further options that we have for our actor. We are going to select this one, the second one, saying class reference. This is what we are going to select. So make sure that you click again here, filter for actor, and here it is. So now here, what we can select is, or what we are going to select is the class reference. So make sure that you select a class reference. So now I'm going to drag this over here. I'm going to call set, and I'm going to plug this set obstacles, which means you see this here, same as here. When you call this, and did I save this one? Compile and save. And over here, yeah, we cannot set the obstacles, don't worry about that. But what I'm going to show you is the following. When you call the set the obstacles function, it will call here set to set these obstacles. But what we need to do is right click, and here I need to say make array again, like this, and plug the array over here. So now it knows that we are searching for arrays with the actor class reference. So here I'm going to add a pin because we have 3 obstacles, and what we're going to do, instead of dragging and dropping them over here, now we can select here a class which is their reference. So I can click on the class, and on the drop down list I can filter for obstacle, and I'm going to put the obstacle one over here. And here again, I'm going to filter, I'm going to say obstacle, and I'm going to filter for obstacle 2. And for the third one, you guessed it, I'm simply going to filter here in the search. I'm going to say obstacle, and this is now obstacle 3, and I'm going to select it, and voila, here we have our obstacle 3. Which means now if I compile and save, the error that we previously had is, well, away, and we are good to go. And we are now going to go back here inside of our construction script, and we are going to right click over here. We're going to call set obstacles, which is now the function that we have just created. So after we call the construction script, and what is the construction script at all? You see here the place to spawn components and do other setup. Basically, when the game is run, this right here will be called, and it will execute everything that we have here. So first of all, we are going to execute set spawn points. After that, we are going to execute here set obstacles. And we need to create another function that is going to, but compile and save for this one. So here under functions, I'm going to click here on the plus and create a new function, and I'm going to call this one spawn obstacles. So now this function is going to spawn on a random obstacle from the obstacles that we have. And how does that go? First of all, we are going to get my spawn points. So we are going to get the spawn points that we have, and we are also going to drag and drop these obstacles, and we're going to get the obstacles. I'm going to put the spawn points here and obstacles over here. So we need to spawn one of the obstacles on random on the spawn point. So what we are going to do here is I'm going to right click and filter for the last index like this. So filter for the last index, we want this one, get the last valid index into an array. What does this mean? This means that we are going to get the last index inside of this array. If this array has 10 elements, we are going to get that index, which is number 10. So plug this array here. So now we have the last index. Now I'm going to right click again, and I'm going to filter for random. So random integer in range. So this is what we want. You see, returns a random integer between minimum and maximum. So it will return a greater or less than, actually greater or equal to minimum, and less than or equal to maximum. So we're going to select it. So now we are going to do what? Well, for the last index, you see, we're going to plug it in here for the maximum. The minimum is going to be 0 because we're going to get the minimum from the 0. You see, you get the point, between the 0 and the last element in the array. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to right click, and I'm going to say add child actor component. You see, this is what we want, add child actor component. So now we need to plug in inside of this add child component, we need to plug in a relative transform. But here, as you see from the spawn points, we get the last index in that array. Now we are generating a random value. We want to generate a random spawning point. So here for the array, I'm simply going to say get, or actually I'm going to say array. And let me just see here, get, and simply type array get. And here under array utilities, you see get a copy and get a reference. Now here we are going to say get a reference. You see like this, get a reference. And what we're going to do, let me just move this over here and this over here. So I'm going to plug this in here and plug in the array over here, and plug this inside of the relative transform. So what the hell did I do? Let me just take my highlight tool. So here this get function will get us an element at this index over here. We generated that element randomly inside of this array, which is this spawn points array. We're going to plug it in inside of the relative transform. So this is what we are doing. Something is not clear, please make sure that you ask in the comment below. So now that we have add child actor component, we are simply going to filter here for set child actor. So it's child, not tjugugune. Set child actor class. This is what we want. And here we're going to connect this, which means after we execute this, this is the one, or this is what will be executed. For the return value, we're going to plug it into the target. But here for the class, what we are going to do? Well, again, for the obstacles, I'm going to filter for, so right click over here, I'm going to filter for last index again. And from the obstacles here, we are going to plug this in, which is going to get us the last index inside of this array. And by the way, we are going to call from our spawn obstacles, which is the function. This is what is going to be called. So it's going to be this, it's going to run directly here on add child actor component, which is going to execute all of the other things that we just did. But anyways, going back here for the obstacles, getting the last index again. And for this one as well, I'm going to right click and we are going to say random integer in range again. And we're going to plug this one into the maximum. So plug this one into the maximum. The minimum again is going to be 0. And again, going back here to get a random obstacle, because we need to plug in a class, which is a reference to the actor class. So I need to right click here and I need to say array get. And this time we got a reference over here. You see, for this one, we got a reference. And you can see here, since it's a direct reference, you can operate directly on the item, blah, blah, blah. But here we want a copy. We don't want a reference, we want a copy. What is a reference? What is a copy? Well, a reference, just go back in the lectures about C++. When I talked about pointers and references, that is a reference. A copy is when you directly copy that element, and the copy is a totally new element, a totally new item, and we can operate and do anything on it, and the changes will not be affected on the original reference. So we're going to click here, get copy. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to plug this in here, which is going to get me the copy at that index from which array? Well, from this bad boy over here, from the obstacles array. And now I'm going to plug this in here in the class, and I'm going to save and compile, and voila. Briefly, before we go and see the effects of it. So what we're doing over here, we are getting the obstacles array. We're getting the last index from it, generating a random value between 0 and that last index, getting a copy from that array, as you can see over here, from that randomly generated index, basically getting a copy of that item, plugging it in over here in the function set child actor class, and voila, that is that. And here we are adding the child actor class. We already explained all of this here, basically the same thing that we are doing here, but we're doing that for the spawn points. And that is that. So I'm simply going to turn off this, compile and save. Make sure that you go back here in the construction script and right click, and we are going to call spawn obstacles, which is our custom function that we have just created. Plug this in over here, which will mean that now after we execute the set spawn points, set the obstacles, we are going to spawn them. I'm going to compile and save. And even here, I believe if I go now, you see, an obstacle is spawned automatically. So if I go in the gameplay and I drag this bad boy over here, you will see, you see the obstacle is spawned automatically. If I start moving it, you see, we are spawning random obstacles at random places. Now, this is directly done. We don't need to run the game, as you see. I don't need to run the game right now to see that this is working, because we are calling this inside of the construction script right here, which will be called right away. You see, it's called right away even when we are in the gameplay, which is a preview, which is really cool. And you see these random obstacles being spawned. This is everything that we did over here in these 3 functions that I've just explained. If something is not clear, comment below and I will help you out. Until then, Fa here from OzTuts.com. I will catch you guys in the next video.